Hello heroes, my name is Adam Cartel and welcome to my first ever video about the game Flesh and Blood. Now, Flesh and Blood is a trading card game developed by Legend Story Studios, which is an independent company in New Zealand. We're gonna talk more about the background and history of the game in a future video, but for now, I would like to show you what my Flesh and Blood deck looks like. Now, you might find it odd that instead of talking about the history of the game and how to play it, I just dove straight into this deck. I'm already assuming that the people watching this video are already deep into the game or know about how to play it already. If you're a newbie and you're watching this right now, welcome to my channel. I'm so glad that you're here. We're gonna make a new video about how to play the game sometime in the future for new players and interested parties. But for now, I'm just going to assume that the people watching this video right now are those who are already deep into the game. Another reason why I did not make a tutorial video as the first ever video about Flesh and Blood, in my channel at least, is that there already is a lot of videos over YouTube that can cover that for you. Like there's Red Zone Rogue, there's also Tolarian Community College. You can look it up on YouTube, Flesh and Blood tutorials. I promise you they can teach you a lot about how to play the game, just like how they taught me. Also, plot twist, I myself am also new to the game. Matter of fact, I only started playing around December of last year. So this is pretty much a Christmas gift to myself. A friend of mine introduced me to this game. Ramses, if you're watching, thank you. He contacted me and my other friends one time in our group chat and then talked about this game Flesh and Blood like, hey, I want to test 2 decks of mine. And then if you find yourself liking it, then maybe let's see how it goes. Now, I did not tell him this, but immediately after he told our group chat about the game, I looked at the website of Flesh and Blood. I looked it up and then I checked out how to play it, and then I saw the heroes, the list of heroes, and then I came upon the assassin. I immediately bought assassin cards. Now, I love the aesthetic of the assassin in all of the other games that I've played, be it trading card games or video games. Assassin is one of my favorite classes to play. Seeing that there's an assassin hero here in Flesh and Blood was already enough of a reason for me to invest in an assassin deck. Now, before we go deeper into the assassin deck, why not click like and subscribe so that you can be updated in my other future videos here in this channel. I am planning to create more content, maybe at least once a week. That much I could promise. It's not much of a spiel, but yeah, this is my first time making this video. Anyway, so the assassin, right? This is the assassin hero of Flesh and Blood, ARAKNI the Huntsman. So ARAKNI has an effect saying whenever you play a card with contract, you may look at the top card of target opponent's deck and you may put it on the bottom. So he's more of a disruptive style hero in which you can mess with your opponent's deck and you can play mind games with him. Like, why would you leave the top card of his deck? Do you want it to be removed? Do you want it to stay there on top? Is there a reason for them to stay on top? And if you put it at the bottom, the opponent might think, hey, was that a threat? Why did he tuck it at the bottom? Now you might be wondering what that keyword was. Contract. The assassin, being flavorful as it is all about fulfilling contracts while you're playing the game. So there are cards here with the contract mechanic, and you must fulfill this contract so that you can gain silver tokens. It's like if you're an assassin and you were given an order to dispose of someone, and you fulfill that, and then you get paid. That's how the assassin plays. What are these contracts? We're gonna dive right into them. But first, let me tell you a little bit of a background about this deck. I am planning to make this my main deck, and the funny thing is, no one really wants to pilot this deck right now, but I brought this in an Armory event. For those who are not in the know, an Armory event is kind of like a small-ish tournament where several people fight with one another's decks, following certain formats. The players playing Armory usually bring their best decks or the best decks in the meta. And no one plays Assassin because the Assassin right now only has a limited number of cards at its disposal. One of the players there said that I was the first Assassin player in passing, or at the very least maybe in the local game store. But yes, no one really plays Assassin in a competitive environment aside from me. And on top of this, I'm bringing this deck to ProQuest. So it's basically the next level, probably on the road to Nationals. I'm not really sure about the tournament tiers right now. So yes, I am mad enough to bring this to the competitive stage. Not mad enough to bring this there. And this deck lost a lot. So my record in Armory with this current format of the deck, with this current deck list, is 1 draw and 2 losses out of 3 matches. I didn't win a single one. And the very first deck that I fought in a practice match before the Armory started was an Iyslander deck, which was also the deck list of the world champion. So imagine me, a new player, coming in with a not so competitive deck, a low tier deck or mid tier deck, facing the champion's deck list. And that's how crazy it was, my first Armory event. And I loved it though, because the Assassin, despite losing, the gameplay is very much enjoyable. For me at least, it doesn't feel bad to lose a game with this deck, because it's just so much fun. And so now we're gonna dive right into this deck. What does my deck have? So first, my deck has these main cards. These are the staples. We're not gonna remove this ever. Not gonna sideboard them out. So these are Eradicate and Leave No Witnesses. We're gonna run 3 copies of these, no questions asked. Eradicate has an effect that says you are contracted to banish opponent's yellow cards. Whenever you complete the contract, create a silver token. When this hits a hero, banish the top X cards of their deck, where X is the damage dealt by Eradicate. It also has the bonus of giving you silver coins for every yellow card that you play. In my experience, the yellows didn't do much for the meta decks. Like for instance, Iyslander or Bravo. Most of their cards are blue. So Eradicate didn't do much to give me silver, but it did help in thinning out their deck. And by the way, this card is yellow and it pitches for 2. This card is yellow, pitches for 2, and costs 1. That's a pretty okay cost considering what it does. And this one, Leave No Witnesses, says you are contracted to banish opponent's red cards. Whenever you complete this contract, create a silver token. When this hits a hero, banish the top card of their deck and up to 1 card in their arsenal. Now this is also a crazy card because you definitely banish 2 automatically. Unlike Eradicate, if Eradicate hits for just 1, you just banish 1 card. Leave No Witnesses, even though if it hits just for 1, it will automatically banish 2 cards. 1 on their arsenal and 1 on top of their deck. Now the arsenal is a very important tool in Flesh and Blood. You can tuck a card for later use. Now imagine cards that remove the arsenal or prevent you from using the arsenal. It's gonna be crazy. You're gonna have a hard time. So Leave No Witnesses does that for 0 cost. For 0 cost, and it pitches for 1. And at the 0 cost, it also attacks for 4 and defends for 3. So that's a pretty good value. Now these 3 are supposed to be surgical extractions. I cannot show you right now because I don't have it yet. I will be receiving it on the 14th. But I will show you the card on one side of the screen so that you can know what it does. Basically what surgical extraction does is it banishes the top card of your opponent's library and 1 card in their hand. Now that's more powerful than Eradicate and Leave No Witnesses in my opinion, because now you can see what they're hiding from you. The cards in the opponent's hand are usually hidden information. You can't see them. But because of surgical extraction, you will be able to see what they're planning. And you can disrupt them. You can directly remove the threat and know what you are removing. But since I don't have it yet, what I put in instead are 2 copies of Last Ditch Effort and Regicide. Now Regicide is ARAKNI's specialization. A legendary specialization at that. Basically, you can only have 1 copy of this card in your deck. What it does is when it hits a royal hero, they lose the game. There are only few decks that run cards that turn your hero into royal. And there's only one royal hero in the game without needing any special items. So why did I put this here? Because really, the quick answer is I don't have much choice with the cards that I have right now. But also, the third ability of Regicide is Regicide can't be defended by cards with the same name as cards in the defending hero's banished zone. So basically, if you have been playing right and you have been banishing cards with Eradicate, Leave No Witnesses, and the other assassin attack actions, there's a really big chance that Regicide will go through with your opponent not being able to block. The problem with Regicide, however, is its second ability. When the combat chain closes, you lose the game. So, if somehow you did not kill your opponent with Regicide, your opponent was not a royal, or if the opponent is a royal but it was able to block or do something about your damage, it was prevented or whatever, you lose. You just straight up lose. So this is pretty much a okay card, but I put it anyway because 1, flavor, and 2, the chance for having an unblockable attack somewhere late in the game is pretty much okay because you can always boost the attack anyway. And if you've been banishing, again, there's gonna be a big chance that you would be able to get the Regicide through. But don't bank on it too much. Since this is blue, you're gonna be using it mostly to pitch and pay for resources for your other cards anyway. Now, the other blue card on my mains is Last Ditch Effort as a substitute again for Surgical Extraction. Last Ditch Effort, when you play Last Ditch Effort, if you have no cards in your deck, it gains +4 attack and go again. So it's basically one of the desperate moves that you can do in the game. But my problem with this is you also have to pay for 3 just to use this card as well. I usually just use this for pitching, for paying resources, and I'm not banking on hitting with it too much in the late game. But in matter of fact, this did not show up in the Armory games. There was no time, and I'm gonna tell you about the deck performance later. But for now, those are the main 3 cards in my arsenal: Eradicate, Leave No Witnesses, Last Ditch Effort. Oh, there's a 4th, Regicide. But again, it was supposed to be Surgical Extraction. Now, for the other attack actions, you have Annihilate the Armed, Rob the Rich, Sack the Shifty, Slay the Scholars, and Plunder the Poor. Now, each of these assassin attack action cards have a different stipulation for their contract. You need to fulfill different things in order to get silver tokens from them. For example, Annihilate the Armed, if you were able to banish an opponent's attack action card, that's when you gain silver. For Rob the Rich, it's for banishing opponent's cards with costs 2 or greater. Sack the Shifty for banishing cards with base go again. Slay the Scholars for non-attack action cards, and Plunder the Poor for cards that costs 1 or less. Now I ran a full playset of all of these in reds because all of their attacks are very efficient for a hero. Annihilate the Armed and Rob the Rich both attack for 5 and defend for 3 at the cost of just 1. While Sack the Shifty, Slay the Scholars, and Plunder the Poor attack for 4 and defend for 3 at the cost of 0. So basically, you can attack and defend efficiently with these cards. Some other heroes have very expensive costs and attack for a massive amount of damage, but defend poorly. But these ones, you can always choose to attack and defend with them and pay probably just 1 or 2 to be able to attack with them. Defending is always free. So yes, you have to fill your deck with all of these contract cards in order to make good use of ARAKNI's special ability. Again, whenever you play these contracts, you can look at the top card of your opponent's deck and then choose whether to keep it on top or put it down. So now you can see how the assassin plays out. You can look at the top card of your opponent's deck and say, hey, this is a yellow card. I probably should keep this on top so that when I hit with Eradicate, I can banish it. Or, if it's too strong, and you don't want to risk any chance of your attack suddenly becoming blocked, your Eradicate being a dud, you can put it on the bottom but risk seeing it later in the game. And that's the beautiful thing about Assassin. It looks simple because it looks like you would think that an assassin would just attack. But no, you have to make very important critical decisions in order to play this deck, in order to pilot this deck. It's not really simple. Essentially, you really have to learn all of the heroes in Flesh and Blood in order to know which cards to banish and which cards to leave on top. But the nice thing about it is that if you just look at the meta around you, if you put yourself out there and then see what the other players play, what the other people around your community plays, you can just focus on learning those decks and then build or tweak your deck around them. You don't have to look out for all of the heroes. You don't have to prepare for all of them if, for example, your community doesn't really play much brutes, doesn't play much mechanologists. You don't have to worry about them too much. But nonetheless, my sideboard plays a more generalist role, some sort of a utility knife. We're going to talk about it later. Like, this is prepared for pretty much any hero in the meta. But we'll get to that later. For now, let's look at the blues. Most of these blues are the blue versions of the red cards here on top. Like for instance, Slay the Scholars for blue, Plunder the Poor at blue, Sack the Shifty at blue. The only new attack action here is Fleece the Frail, really, which is a contract that looks at opponent's cards with 2 or less defense. So if you somehow see that the opponent's top card is something that has no defense or has 2 or less defense, you can banish it with Fleece the Frail and then you gain silver out of it. And if you notice, the attacks of the blues are weaker than the reds, and that's usually how it goes. The blues have less powerful attacks, but they pay for a lot. They pay for 3. The reds always pay for 1. And that's the thing about the blues. They may have weaker attacks or weaker effects, but they pay for a lot of resources, and resources are always important. So yeah, that's pretty much all of the blues. I tried to strike a balance between the reds and the blues. Oh, one more thing. These 3 cards in the corner, these are the cards that boost all of these attack actions. So we have Nimblism, Cut to the Chase, and Razor Reflex. Let's start with Razor Reflex. Razor Reflex, choose 1, target sword or dagger weapon attack gains +3 attack. And target attack action card with cost 1 or less gains +3. And if this hits, this attack gains Go Again. You can only choose one of those modes, but the important thing about this is it boosts either a weapon attack or an attack actions attack. Pretty flexible. Cut to the Chase is target assassin attack action card with contract gains +3. And look at the top card of the defending hero's deck and you may put it at the bottom. So you have an additional way to peek. Even if you've already played your attack action card and triggered ARAKNI's ability, you can do it again. And in addition, you can boost the assassin attack action and threaten to actually banish the top card of your opponent's deck. And lastly, we have Nimblism, which is an action as opposed to a reaction. The next attack action card with cost 1 or less that you play this turn gains +3 and Go Again. So this Nimblism, the difference between Nimblism and Cut to the Chase and Razor Reflex is that Nimblism is an action with Go Again. So you play this first before you play the attack action. And Cut to the Chase and Razor Reflex are both reactions. So you basically do these ones after you see if your opponent is defending or not. So it's just an order thing. But they all add +3, which is sometimes enough, or more often than not enough to get your damage through and successfully banish the top card of your opponent's deck. So that's basically how the deck plays. Find a way to get that attack through, and then banish the top card of their deck, which you already saw because of ARAKNI. Or at least you saw what's on top and then put it at the bottom. It's up to you. Now, to help ARAKNI with this gameplay, he has all of these equipments. The equipments that I have right now, I brought to the Armory, but they're not really the most efficient choices. The cards that I need to make this deck more deadly and more efficient will be given to me on the 14th, the day of the ProQuest. So, the headgear of the assassin, so it's called the Mask of Perdition, and what it does is that as an attack reaction, you can sacrifice it to banish an additional card on top of the opponent's deck. And you can also defend with it for 1. And while this is in your graveyard, you can buy it back at the start of your turn with 2 silvers. So you just keep on gaining silver. You can then defend with this, and then Battle Worn triggers, which basically reduces its defense after you defend with it. But you can then sacrifice it for its attack reaction, and then just pick it up later. And the -1 counter for its defense will be removed. So you really want to sacrifice this and recur this from the graveyard and block with it regularly, right? So that you can make efficient use of its abilities. Pretty good. You can banish an additional card every time, and you can also save 1 HP from your hero every time you block with it. There's probably more expensive options, which arguably does a better job, like the crown. But for me, Mask of Perdition is the assassin headgear right now. ARAKNI's weapon is called the Spider's Bite, and this is a one-handed dagger. And there are 2 copies of this because you can use both hand slots to equip 2 daggers at once. So what the dagger does is once per turn action, you pay 2 so that you can attack, and it has go again. So you can regain an action point after you attack. It has piercing 1, which is basically if your opponent defends with an equipment with it, this gains an additional +1. So basically if your opponent defends for 1, it still will hit them for 1 because the attack will become 2. Also, when this hits a hero, the next time they defend with 1 or more attack action cards this turn, those cards have -1 defense while defending. So basically the good thing about Spider's Bite, or what you want to do with Spider's Bite, is you attack with it first so that your opponent's defenses can be reduced, and it will help your contracts go through. So that's what Spider Bite does. Rarely do I attack with both Spider's Bites, because usually what I do is attack with a Spider's Bite and then attack with an action card after that. So yeah, really good weapon. Even though it only hits for 1, its utility is important. For the armor, I only have the iron rod plate with me. That is for defending for 1, but it can only do it once because it has blade break. Basically, if you defended with it, when the combat chain closes, you destroy the plate. But hey, one life is important every time. For the arms, I have both Goliath Gauntlet and Cracker Jacks. Both of them does almost the same thing. You destroy them and then you boost the next attack action cards that you play. The difference is that Goliath Gauntlet targets the next attack action card with cost 2 or greater, and Cracker Jacks targets any attack action card. But Cracker Jacks only boosts for +1. Goliath Gauntlet boosts for +2. Goliath Gauntlet is really nice. It's just a boost for surgical extraction, because that's the only attack action card that I have with cost 2 or that I will have with cost 2 or greater. Cracker Jacks is the one that I used during the last game, because really all of these are just ones and zeros. Well, Last Ditch Effort is 3, but again, it won't show up in all of the games. Matter of fact, it did not show up at all in my game. We have this for boots, the Snapdragon Scalers. As an attack reaction, you destroy it, and then the next attack action card that you play gains go again. This is a nice combo with the contract. So basically, as an attack reaction, you give one of the contracts go again, and then you potentially play a second contract which again banishes another card on top of the opponent's deck after you after you take a look at it the second time using ARAKNI's special ability. But also, the important thing about having two contracts on the combat chain at the same time is that if somehow the banished cards fulfill both contracts, you gain 2 silver out of them, 1 silver each. So basically you can get 2 silver for just 1 card. But since this is Snapdragon Scalers and you can't recur this, you can only do that magic once. These 3 are equipments with Arcane Barrier. Why is this important? Why is Arcane Barrier important? Well, arcane damage is also prevalent in my meta, so I need separate sources of Arcane Barrier in order to prevent damage from a single source. Because you can't spam Arcane Barrier through just one card. So if say you have 3 arcane damage coming your way, you can't negate all of them using Arcane Lantern because it only has barrier 1. So you need 3 barrier 1s in order to defend yourself from a single source of 3 arcane damage. So this will help with wizards and other heroes that deal arcane damage, but mostly wizards, mostly Iyslander. And the last card, the last equipment that I have is the Ornate Tessin. What it does is you pay 1 and then you destroy it, and then you can put a card from your hand onto the bottom of your deck and then draw a card. I only use this once in playtesting and it's pretty much useful, but I still find myself equipping 2 Spider's Bites instead. But I am leaning towards using just 1 dagger and then have an Ornate Tessin on the offhand in my future games, because I think that makes more sense, because I really do not find myself using 2 daggers to attack with. And lastly, this is the silver token. This is what it looks like. If you're not using silver to pay for recurring the mask, you can always pay 3, destroy 1 of your silvers to draw a card and go again. It's a nice important if you want to dig. It's a nice important card if you want to dig for threats. I found myself having like at the maximum 6 silvers at a time, and I always get a constant stream of silver every turn, like maybe 1 or 2 silvers every turn, and that is enough for me to recur the mask every time. So that's another additional banish. Yeah, so that's for the current iteration of the deck, of the main board rather. Now for the sideboard, what I have for the sideboard are the following cards. First, I have an additional copy of Nimblism, but a yellow one, and a single copy of Cash In. Cash In, I may destroy 4 coppers, 2 silvers, or 1 gold. In my case, 2 silvers. I can use those coins to pay for Cash In's costs as opposed to its cost of 4, which is pretty expensive. So instead of that, I just destroy 2 silvers and then draw 2 cards and then go again. So that's pretty powerful. You do know that drawing cards is a very potent ability to do in most card games, because you need cards in order to answer, to defend, to block, to defend or to attack, whatever. But the thing is, this isn't supposed to be Nimblism. I actually need another copy of Remembrance instead. Remembrance, what it does is you shuffle up to 3 action cards from your graveyard into your deck and then you banish this. So it's important if, for example, you find yourselves getting decked out a lot, or you find yourselves throwing a lot of cards in the graveyard, Remembrance just puts it right back. So if your opponent somehow also tries to fatigue you, that is to say, if your opponent is trying to drain your resources as well through your deck, banishing them or discarding them, if your opponent tries to throw a lot of cards to your graveyard, you can just put this back and then you have 3 more. You have 3 more cards here. If you have 2 copies of Remembrance, you can like do it twice. So that's 6. I also have this Oasis Respite, Sink Below, and Fate Foreseen, which basically are, actually let's just separate Fate Foreseen first and Sink Below. Fate Foreseen and Sink Below, I use them as defense reactions in case my opponent is attacking me directly. They don't have much use against wizards because you really can't use defense reactions in order to defend against arcane damage. So aside from their effects, which are also powerful, Fate Foreseen having an opt effect. You look at the top card of your deck and then you may put it at the bottom or keep it at the top. And Sink Below being a card that you can sink one of your cards from your hand and then put it at the bottom of your deck and then replace it with the one on top. It's a nice tool to have in your arsenal. But really, I usually just use these to defend myself. It's the most important thing about it. For me, at least. And then Oasis Respite, it also prevents 4 damage. 4 damage coming your way, any sort of damage. And then if you have less life than your opponent, you gain 1 health. So it helps you stall the game and helps you give you more time to find more answers. All of these cards that I just showed you right now is mostly used in order to survive. Like this one also, Sigil of Solace heals you for 3, nothing special. But 3 is always very important. So having 3 copies of this in your deck heals you for 9. Every single life point here in Flesh and Blood is very important. You have 3 yellow shreds. And then you also have this. 2 copies of That All You Got. That All You Got is also a defense reaction. While this is defending an attack with 2 or less attack when the combat chain closes, I draw a card. Why did I put this in the sideboard? For those decks that go wide. Most of those decks just attack for 1 or 2. And if That All You Got successfully blocks those cards, I get to draw a card because of them. So if for instance, someone attacks me twice with 2 power cards or below, so that's mostly ninjas, I just block with That All You Got, and if the chain closes, I get to draw 2 cards because I blocked with 2 of them. So most of those cards are mostly to try and stall the game in order for you to have more time to banish your opponent's deck and have more time to find more answers and basically just fatigue your opponent. So just give you more turns in order to banish additional cards on top of their deck until they run out. How did this perform in Armory? I'm gonna be straightforward with you. It performed badly at the Armory. And mostly because I faced Iyslander decks twice. And Iyslander is a very potent deck. It's a very strong deck, and I just found myself really having not enough tools to deal with them. I believe that having Surgical Extraction would have been really great in my Iyslander matches, because that would mean me banishing a key card from their hand and seeing what's coming for the next turn. Making the opponent's hand public information is pretty much strong, and that would have really helped my game plan. But yeah, I'm pretty much outmatched with those Iyslander decks. They also have those meta cards, the expensive ones like Fiendal, Spring Tunic, Storm Striders. Basically all of the tools that are really strong in the game and are also pretty much out of my budget right now. It was a wash. Iyslander was a wash, except maybe the second Iyslander match that I played. I probably stood a chance if I played correctly, because I started strong with that match. I was able to play Leave No Witnesses and Eradicates almost in sequence. It was all good plays, but Iyslander was able to stall me out instead of me stalling out Iyslander, mostly because Iyslander deals arcane damage and also adds additional costs to my cards because of the Frostbite. So it slowed me down. Now on the other hand, I fought a Bravo and it was a draw. I was able to draw out the Bravo, which is a Guardian. And it was pretty funny to me because both of our gameplays involved some form of stalling, and his gameplay involves attacking big after stalling for a while. But I was able to banish the correct cards and was able to slow his game down. But the thing is, the Armory match apparently has a time limit. But my gameplay was fatigue. So I was really trying to draw out the game. I was trying to slow it down and try to thin out this deck. But it took such a long time, and we're both still alive. And the organizer basically told the guy, "Hey, if you kill him in this turn, you win." But I did not die, and he wasn't able to kill me. So that match ended in a draw. But I think I would have also lost anyway, because I was already at like 7 life, and Bravo's still at 20, and I think I do not have enough time to banish the remaining cards in their deck. But I was really confident that I can outlast Bravo, because I still have a thick deck anyway, because I was playing conservatively. I was only just blocking the big attacks coming their way, and I just playing one attack at a time. So yeah, I was playing the long game. Because of the really restrictive time limit, I wasn't able to win. My opponent wasn't able to win, and it ended in a draw. I wasn't able to fight any other decks outside of those matches. But yes, I do think my learnings for that match is that I probably shouldn't have threw all of my sideboard cards right into the deck. Why? Because I thought that Iyslander is going to fatigue me. I thought Iylander's gameplay was supposed to also make me run out of resources or stall me until my deck runs out. But no, that Iyslander that I fought has Wounded Bull on it. So basically, it can attack for 8, can attack hugely. And that was a mistake. I shouldn't have included the defense reactions in Iyslander, because they will have no use at all. Because Iyslander only attacks with Wounded Bull. That's just one attack, and having too many defense reactions just messes with the algorithm, just messes with the probability of drawing what I need. So maybe I shouldn't have thrown those defense resources in the deck during those matches. For Bravo, I do believe that it's alright to just throw all of the sideboard in here and then just try to outlast Bravo, because I also need all of the defenses that I need all of the defenses that I can get to block all those big attacks. But the thing is, Bravo has Dominate, and Dominate is you can only defend with one card from your hand. So I can defend only once, and I think I can play an instant anyway. So I just threw the sigils here, but in the rare instance that I can defend with the defense reaction, I'd also need that against Bravo. So I just threw everything in my deck fighting Bravo, and I think it works. It worked for me. My upgrades for this deck would be to replace Snapdragon Scalers with Black Tech Whisperers, a very powerful assassin card. I will show it to you on the side of the screen. Basically, what it does, it is you sacrifice it as an attack reaction in order to give one of your assassin cards go again. It also has Battle Worn, just like the mask. And just like the mask, you can also buy it for 2 silver from the graveyard. As long as you have the silver to pay for it, of course, which means you can have turns where you can play 2 contracts at a time, which will definitely speed up the banishing of your opponent's deck. And that's very much what you want to do, playing an assassin. Again, another upgrade that I will do is throw away Regicide and both of the last ditch efforts and put in Surgical Extractions. Now, I have 2 confirmed copies of Surgical Extraction already. I'm just waiting for my budget to come in so that I can buy my 3rd copy of Surgical Extraction, and I will be having those on the ProQuest, and I will see the performance of that deck then. Lastly, I am going to replace Cash In with another copy of Remembrance and replace Nimbalism with another copy of That All You Got. Now, I also have an additional copy of That All You Got coming my way, but I don't think I have Remembrance. I'll probably ask around the community if they have an extra copy of Remembrance. I forgot about that, but I will do that as well. So that's it. That's my ARAKNI Assassin deck. How it works, how it performed in a competitive environment, what went right, what went wrong, and what I could improve on before ProQuest comes in. Now if you like this content, hit like down below and also click subscribe. Also, leave a comment down below and tell me, do you like the Assassin deck? Have you ever faced it in combat? Do you pilot an Assassin deck yourself? Do you like the Assassin class? Do you hate the Assassin class? Do you think it has potential? What other videos do you want me to cover? Do you want me to cover different formats? Oh, speaking of different formats, I do have several commoner decks that I may show you guys. So that's it for now. My name is Adam Cartel. So long, hero. See you in the next battle.